Hello, my name is Tony. In the early 70s, British film director, producer, screenwriter Michael Winner made two classic westerns, a movie genre he was not typically associated with. Lawman in 1971 with Burt Lancaster was one, and Chato's Land in 72 was the other, the first of several screen collaborations with actor Charles Bronson. Arguably, it was Bronson's work with Winner that propelled him from stardom to 70s superstardom, and here is where it began. So let's get serious for a change. Critics and others tend to strongly disparage and marginalise Winner and his body of work, but I see it differently, and if you have already or do eventually watch my review of Lawman on this channel, I explain why. I'm not going to tap dance across the same old ground here, I'm just going to focus on the nihilistic and brutal work of gleefully flint-hard genius that is Chato's Land. Saddle up, pilgrims. When I first saw the film in late 73 in a truly horrible South Wales winter, I loved it. I watched it repeatedly over the years, I grew to love it even more. There are many who dismiss it as mindless sadistic exploitation, but me, I can appreciate it for its stark and savage beauty and no-frills simplicity. This is an example of stripped-back filmmaking at its finest, yet beneath its raw and jagged exterior lies a surprising layer of intellectual functioning, a whispering undercurrent with something to say, to those who choose to listen. The premise is set up in the first 3 or so minutes of screen time. Everything you need to know is here. A half-breed Native American Apache, Pardon Chato, played by a very taciturn Charles Bronson, stands at a saloon bar to buy a shot of whiskey. The barman refuses to serve him, advising this is an establishment for white folks only. Enter the town sheriff, a fat redneck who racially abuses Chato, then tries to draw his gun and kill him. Chato is faster and blows his guts out. Chato leaves the bar and gallops out of town at speed. The local village idiots quickly form a posse under the former Confederate Captain Quincy Whitmore, Jack Palance, and take off in hot pursuit. That's it, that's the deal, nothing else to the plot. Chato's on the run, the posse are giving chase. They want to catch him and torture and lynch him as an act of revenge. Grasp that and you've got the whole enchilada right there. There is no mystery to be solved, nothing to be unravelled, no narrative complexities to contend with. All the viewer need do is sit back and watch how it plays out, and absorb the action on the screen, and maybe interpret what they're seeing a little, and what some of it means and represents. For the most part though, this movie is a crystal clear manifestation of the art of economy in storytelling. Some may think, well, if that's all there is to it, it's not going to be for me, but you might be wrong. First thing to remember, at the time this was made, America was committed to a deeply unpopular and divisive war in Vietnam. Unparalleled military forces with state-of-the-art weapons and technology were getting their asses handed to them by some undernourished little Asian guys running around the jungle in pyjamas and digging tunnels in the dirt. A seemingly superior force was either getting nowhere or, quite shockingly, losing ground. Hold that in mind, and don't anyone mention Afghanistan.
Listen, don't mention the war. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it all right.
The characters who make up the posse are mostly racist bigots, rednecks with an axe to grind or something to prove, or in it simply because they're driven by mindless bloodlust. Josh Everett, James Whitmore, joins up because...
No, I'll ride any place to see a dead engine.
Right, whilst I figure there was little in the way of meaningful entertainment at the time and in this place, drawing amusement from seeing a dead Indian is one hell of a damning indictment. The Hooker brothers, Jubal, Elias and Earl, Simon Oakland, Ralph Waite and Richard Jordan, are violent, depraved and hateful, full of their own imagined self-importance and status, with interests that include bullying, killing and rape. They'd cross rivers of molten lava for the chance to inflict hurt on another human being, dressing it up in their vacuous minds as some sort of moral crusade or worthy judicial endeavour. And Captain Quincy, not quite over being on the losing side in a civil war, sees the quest to bring Chato to heel as a chance to actually win one last campaign. What unfolds is a seriously harsh Western parable, an abrasive and stone-cold essay on the corrosive effects of racial intolerance and man's inhumanity to man. There is almost zero forgiveness in either the characters or the landscape, both of which manifest only savagery and implacable severity. It becomes all too clear who the real savages are, and it's not the monolithic half-breed, but the inhumane and spiritually ugly posse on his tail. Chato is in no all-fired hurry to escape his pursuers. He takes his own sweet time, stopping for comfort breaks, not covering his tracks, even leaving clues as to the direction he's headed. They can't see him, but he's never far away, monitoring their progress closely. They are too dumb, too egocentric to realize he's leading them deeper and deeper into his domain, his world, where he knows the terrain, the lay of the land, where he is the dominant force. Throughout the first half of the film, Chato provides his enemies with a means to relinquish their quest, turn back, back, give up, and go home with their lives intact. He infiltrates their camp at night, sabotaging their water supply, and even though one character points out,
He could have cut our throats.
they still fail to comprehend he's given them the chance to opt out. What they choose instead is to continue to pursue their quarry. With events escalating to violence, murder and gang rape, they become the architects of their own doom. They are barbarians blinded by self-righteous hatred. Chato, for all his killer instinct, is a nobler being, at home in the barren landscape, concerned only with survival on his own terms. Inevitably, the Posse sow the seeds of their own destruction by alighting on Chato's home, where his wife is raped and his brother murdered. Chato turns on his antagonists and proceeds to hunt them down using guerrilla tactics for which they are no match. Exploiting the environment to his own advantage, he systematically terrorizes and kills his enemies, or sees them panic and turn on one another. Throughout, Winner's directorial style is smartly primal, basic, perfectly suited to framing the minimalist narrative. For all his unflinching brutality and innate capacity to terrorize and kill, Chato is a higher being in all respects compared to the white trash scum on his case. Bronson is perfectly cast as the laconic native who is simply a force of nature in his own land. He has very few lines of dialogue. Schwarzenegger's Terminator quotes Shakespearean soliloquies by comparison, but his actions speak volumes. Yeah, I know, many movies of the time used the Vietnam War as allegory, but in Chato's land it is not weaponized as a bludgeon or soapbox. It's surprisingly subtle yet pragmatically integrated. Quincy fails to understand his enemy outside of dogmatic bias, assumption and mythology. He makes inaccurate pronouncements of what the Indian is, how he thinks and functions, and how he behaves, all filtered through the prism of his own prejudice. He fails to understand what he is truly up against, and he is blind to his own failings. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Sun Tzu, Art of War. I'll leave it to you to decide wherein Quincy fits. Chato's land has a fair share of talented character actors who acquit themselves well. Jack Palance, a legendary performer, mostly typecast as a villain, turns in an excellent performance as Quincy, donning his old Confederate tunic and hat, dressing up and playing soldier one more time, grasping a last chance at victory, not realizing he's lost again as soon as he hits the trail. In support, Richard Basehart and James Whitmore stand out, as does Ralph Waite as one of the Hooker brothers. Waite is a long way from his defining role as the gentle patriarch in the Waltons as it is possible to get. Filmed in Almeria, Spain, Winner's favourite cinematographer Robert Painter, who was later director of photography on Michael Jackson's thriller video Pop Pickers, contrasts between cool glowing shots of stunning cloud formations and lens flaring sunsets and stark compositions of barren inhospitable scrubland and jagged rock formations. His figures in a landscape, often silhouetted against the sky, impress an effectively desolate sensation in the viewer. The visual counterpoint is the bright and glaring daylight scene set in a bleached, arid wasteland, where it seems a miracle that anyone or anything can survive for long. The reliable Jerry Fielding provides an unintrusive score which complements the action. Fielding has a reputation, whether deserved or not, for sometimes overpowering with his compositions, but here it is no distraction from what is happening on screen. All the way through, the film belongs to Winner and Bronson. These days, Winner is more remembered as a jovial buffoon in adverts and on chat shows and a snobbish food critic. And in fairness, he played up that persona to make a buck when film directing gigs dried up. It should not be forgotten that he was once a British director of some worthwhile vision and status, making key films in the swinging 60s that helped define that decade, and then mapping out the genre of modern revenge cinema in the 70s. Chato's Land is a prime example of his work and demands to be viewed in a fresh light by new audiences. The portrayal of human nature as a cruel, vindictive, primordially malevolent and antagonistic entity has rarely been so tellingly achieved on screen. The final scenes of Chato's Land still hold a rare and bleak power. The last remaining survivor of the Posse, on foot and without water or food, makes it to the border of the place that Chato calls home, only to find him stoically waiting on horseback, holding a rifle. As he tries to move forward, Chato moves to block his path. With no other choice, he turns around and stumbles back into the deadly wilderness, whilst Chato, impassively and statue still, watches him go. The screen slams to black. No music, no credits, the end. Fabulous. Finally, it's rare for a film made so long ago to resonate accurately with the present day. Themes of the destructive capacity of racism, intolerance and bigotry, and the futility of engaging in unwinnable wars that only result in loss, horror and despair make Chato's Land a lasting testament. Just take a look at the news. If the woke flakes were honestly woke in a realistic and pragmatic sense, they would realise that their cancel culture obsession only adds fuel, exacerbates and drives underground that which should be identified, addressed and dealt with in the light. But like Quincy Whitmore, they can't see beyond their own prejudices and lack of understanding and unwillingness to comprehend. Maybe they don't want to, and maybe by cancelling out things and people, they don't have to. The members of the Posse want to cancel Pardon Chato. It didn't end well for them. As always, thank you for your time and attention. It is gratefully appreciated. If you want to help keep the channel up and running, you know what to do. If you don't, no biggie. I shall continue nonetheless. Well, until YouTube decrees otherwise. Meanwhile, here's...